This episode is brought to you by SAILY. Now, I've got a few trips coming up in the next few months, and I consider myself a pretty well-seasoned traveler. After doing it for all these years, you would think I had it down to a fine art. Well, I certainly thought I did. But then I was introduced to SAILY's eSIMs, and my travel has been revolutionized. Changing my SIM is the one thing I always forget, can be so time-consuming when traveling, but makes such a difference to my trips when I remember. SAILY has the answer. It gives you the choice of eSIMs from over 180 different countries and 8 regions, so you'll always have connection when you need it. All you need to do is download an app once, and it will ensure you stay online, save time, and avoid scams. It's really easy to install, and listeners of the podcast can get an exclusive discount on SAILY's eSIMs. They can do that today by going to SAILY.com/TripUS. And this is a personal plea from me to all TripUS fans. Dominic Sambrook promotes SAILY in a very passionate sort of a way, and I'm a competitive person, and so I'm asking you please to step up right now and have me best Dominic Sambrook by reading this brilliant ad about SAILY. Go to SAILY.com/TripUS and sign up today. You won't be disappointed.
Welcome to The Rest is Politics US with me, Katty K, in Washington.
And I'm Anthony Scaramucci in the Swiss Alps at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. You see that? I own it. I own it, Katty. I own the smug elitism of that statement. Do you see that? We're going to work on you, okay? We're going to work on it, okay?
You are the global elite, but somehow I'm stuck in Washington. So
I'm Katty K. I'm at home.
You're so silly.
Can I expose my attention deficit disorder for a moment before we get into the meat of the politics and talk about fashion for 1 second? Because you have a fashion sense. Melania Trump, who is wearing a perimeter hat so that you cannot see her eyes, so therefore you can't see the disgust in her eyes. And there's no way to get a kiss in there, Katty. I don't know if you saw that, but it was literally like wearing an American football.
When he
It was literally like wearing an American football helmet. Okay, there was no way to get a kiss in. So
do not come near my face.
And she'd wear the hat for a good part of the day. Am I overreading that, or am I reading it correctly?
Look, Melania Trump always chooses her outfits very carefully. And she is always sending a message. So the first time around, she wore that rather Jackie O, baby blue, kind of fun. I'm happy to be here. Look at me. I'm the belle of the ball. Let's get back to the Jackie Kennedy era of fashion, and the Trumps are coming. And I felt it was softer and warmer. And this was a super severe outfit. She turned up at church. You thought, my God, is this like what she would wear, to a funeral or something, potentially to Donald Trump's funeral or something. And she's wearing this very straight, actually kind of gorgeous, dark blue coat that she keeps buttoned up the whole day. And then that hat, which I don't know if she planned this or not, but inadvertently meant you could not see her face in any of the camera shots. And you've just got this rather sphinx-like expression on the bottom half of her face. You can't see her eyes. And I don't know if it was planned to keep the cameras away from her eyes, but it did do that. And it reinforced the idea of Melania Trump as this rather enigmatic figure. And it had the upside that he couldn't kiss her, which, if you're Melania and you know what their marriage is like.
And one more, if you don't mind. The awkward dance that they had at several of the inaugural balls. What did you think of the body language there?
I actually thought the dancing at the Commander-in-Chief ball was okay. I thought it was reasonably graceful as somebody who watches dance. I thought what was not okay and what was super awkward was there was a moment at the end of one of the dances where Donald Trump and all of the Trump family are on stage, and he calls each of them out with favorable things to say. And Melania Trump is standing right next to him, and he does not say a word about her. Not even, "and my lovely wife, Melania." He either forgets to mention her or chooses not to mention her. And the expression on her face, this rather sort of rictus grin of, "You asshole, why can't you even say thank you to me? I'm coming back to Washington, which is a city I hate, and leaving behind my lovely Florida and New York for you, and you don't even say thank you."
But I'm not living in the White House, right? She's been very clear about that. She's not going to live in the White House. And again, we're going to go to the politics in a second, but this is important for viewers and listeners. Trump likes having his family around. Whatever you think of Donald Trump, he ran the Trump Organization with family. He ran The Apprentice with family. First Trump administration, Jared, Ivanka were in it. Lots of family members around. this administration sans family. And I think it has an impact on his mood. There's a cruelty to a lot of the things that he did on his first day returning to the presidency. And I think his personality is impacted by not having some of those people around. And I got to know Melania on the first campaign. I like her. I think she is a softening agent for him when they have a good relationship. And obviously the kids, I have good, I don't speak to them anymore, but I'm sure if I did speak to them, it would be cordial. They were always good to me, and I was good to them. They were softening agents for Donald Trump. They're not around now. And I think you could see there's an expression of unkindness coming out of the president in the first couple of days of the administration. Now we can talk politics, but I think this sort of stuff is impacting the politics. I think people need to know about it.
And actually, he confirmed what you've just said, Anthony, because he said on Inauguration Day that it was Melania who had asked him to leave out some of the tougher paragraphs in his inaugural address. So clearly Melania is somebody he listens to, and as you say, who tries to make things a little softer for him. I had one interesting conversation over the weekend with somebody, a senior official from the first Trump administration, who said only half jokingly, you know how Donald Trump thinks what he really wants is a Trump dynasty. In his mind, he's thinking, okay, I do 4 more years. Don Jr. runs for governor of Montana, and then he becomes president, and then it's Barron. And this guy was kind of laughing, but he was saying, that's how Trump thinks. That's what he would like. He wants to outdo the Bush. And it's not just about creating a Trump dynasty. It's about doing better than the Bush dynasty. He doesn't want people talking about the Bush dynasty. He doesn't want people talking about the Kennedy dynasty. It's going to be the Trump dynasty. And in his mind, Barron Trump is the third Trump president. Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. Funny bit of gossip from Washington.
Let me add a piece to that narrative. We're a rich family, but I'm going to make $500 billion. If Putin is worth $1 trillion, I'm going to figure out a way in 4 years to make at least $500 billion. And I'm going to inject this meme coin, which we'll talk about in the second half, $40 billion there. Bribery Central, Corruption Central through this. I hated TikTok. Money came into the campaign. I love TikTok. I'm going to be a very transactional president. By the way, Nancy Pelosi trades her account. We have Leonardo da Vinci, Hunter Biden, or Hunter Biden da Vinci, selling paintings to people that are worthless for lots of money. And so he'll do the whataboutism, and he'll do the corruption to a higher exponent of the other political leaders. And so he'll leave office with $500 billion. And this will be the cannon fodder for this dynasty that you're talking about. And no Democrats and no Republicans will say anything, I guess. The stone cold silence on the meme coin, I think, is unbelievable.
Well, let's talk about that in the second half. Let's save that. I mean, we talked about the risk of fascism in this country or autocracy in this country, and maybe it's really just the risk of grift in leadership in this country. So on day one, Donald Trump issued 26 executive orders. That is more than any other president in history by a long way. The president who was second behind him was Joe Biden in 2020. He issued 9 executive orders. And what I really want to do over the next few minutes is try and understand which of these executive orders are actually going to change this country and which won't, because some of these are substantive and some of them are just performative. Some of these executive orders he issues just to make his base happy, just to show them that he has the power to do it, but they won't actually bring about much change in America because executive orders are fragile things. They can be overturned by the next administration. They can be and will be and are already being challenged in the courts of law. If an executive order is only legally valid until it either violates the Constitution or an existing legal statute, an existing law. And several of these executive orders challenge existing laws. So a lot of them that are getting the most attention, for example, the executive order to end birthright citizenship, which is the right of anyone who is born in this country, whether or not your parents are Americans, whether or not your parents were here legally. And it was a right that was given to ensure that the children of slaves who were brought to America got the right to American citizenship. That is something that he said on day one, signed an executive order saying he was going to end birthright citizenship. but it's in the Constitution. And so, Anthony, I don't think that's an executive order that we even need to be spending much time on, because I don't see how on earth, even with a conservative-leaning Supreme Court, that they're going to amend the Constitution to ban birthright citizenship. What do you think?
Now, that's a heartbreaking one for me, because we've had a cultural welcome mat out since we put the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor. And yes, that obviously that amendment came as the aftermath of the Civil War. But let me just give you a fact set. There's let's say there's a woman from Trinidad. She's 55. She's lived in the country. She got here. Perhaps her papers weren't perfect, and she didn't really, due to lack of education or understanding, get the paperwork processed properly, but she's paid all of her taxes. She's been a dutiful citizen of the United States, a mom, 3 children, all adults now, 1 in college, 2 working and progressing in the society. And they were all born in the United States, never saw any other country other than the United States. What they're talking about is, so she's illegal, and a result of which she needs to be deported immediately to the country that she came from. And a result of the fact of her illegality, the 3 children that are productive current citizens of the United States, their citizenship needs to be revoked, and they need to be pulled out of the country. They don't want to separate families, they said. So they need to be pulled out of the country alongside of her. I'm trying to give you real world scenarios
about why this could be cruel.
Yes, exactly. And so it's obviously a direct violation of the Constitution. Now, the Supreme Court ruled against Donald Trump with TikTok, and it was a 9-0 decision. Is the Supreme Court going to rule against this executive order? We're supposed to have originalists on the court. The 6 justices that are proclaimed conservatives are supposed to adhere to the original intent of the Constitution and the original intent of the amendments associated with the Constitution. And so therefore, those 6 should be saying what Trump is doing is wrong and invalidating it immediately. Will they do that, Katty?
The constitutional lawyers that I have spoken to this week ahead of recording this program, even a conservative constitutional lawyer said he thought the birthright citizenship executive order is the least likely to hold, because it's hard to find a majority even on this Supreme Court that would vote to amend the Constitution for that. The reason I think we should be doing this exercise is that Trump wants us to think that he is producing huge amounts of changes very fast, that this is the kind of, shock and awe, storm and drum of American politics. But actually, quite a lot of what he has suggested isn't going to get through. And you mentioned the TikTok ban, because I think that's another one that I have been told is legally dubious. The Supreme Court has already, as you say, ruled on this one and ruled to put the ban in place. Donald Trump is trying to say that for national security reasons, there should be an extension to putting the ban in place, that there should be a pause in putting the ban in place. But Congress has already reviewed the national security implications and decided to go ahead with the ban. The Supreme Court has already reviewed Congress's statute and decided to uphold the statute. So what's the argument, the legal argument? Does Trump win on this one? Does he manage to overturn the TikTok ban? Because I think if he manages to overturn the TikTok ban, when there is nothing in the Constitution that gives the president the right to defy a law simply on national security grounds, if a law is in place and it's a valid statute, he doesn't have the right as president. I think what's interesting about this one is it really tests the idea of executive power. So do you think he manages to win that one?
So I'm going to say no about that, but it's Trump's America now, so I'm not exactly sure. Okay, but this TikTok ban, this legislation to ban TikTok, was approved in the House of Representatives 352 to 65.
And that's in a very divided House, right? That's in a house that is super divided, and yet they all agreed on this one.
Yeah, but also remember, these Republicans thought they were doing Trump's bidding. When this was passed, Trump was saying we have to ban TikTok. And so now money enters the campaign. Meetings happen with the TikTok executives. Meetings happen with the lobbyists. The TikTok people color their algorithm to support Donald Trump and see if they can create activity, voting activity for Donald Trump among the youth of America. He wins more youth of America as a result of the fluctuations in the algorithm. And now he's for it. And so what does he say to these Republicans? They say, "Hey, hello, President Trump, I did your bidding. I voted for the TikTok ban. You've now got me out on the ledge because you don't want to do that anymore because you've obviously been paid and bribed to not do that.
Which he doesn't care about, by the way. Does he care that he's left them out on a ledge?
Oh, no, of course he doesn't. So, hey, message the public servants. Okay, he does not care about you. He'll run you right over with the bus. If you're serving his interests in that moment, that's great. He has the memory of a teensy fly and he has a loyalty of a gnat and doesn't care. And so he's going to blow you up. Tom Cotton, Senator Cotton from Arkansas, veteran on the Senate Intelligence Committee, stood up and said, I'm sorry, this has to be banned. And Katty, I know we have to move on, but I want you to think about this one thing. And a big shout out to the Rest is Classified guys who did a special on this, which I listened to, which was fantastic. The Chinese government wants to shut down TikTok. In other words, we're not selling it. You're not getting our weapons grade, intelligence grade data retrieval systems. You're not getting our information gathering, our propaganda machinery. We're not going to teach you about how we're manipulating the minds of your young people. So we'll shut down a $50 billion company before we do anything else. And so it's interesting. Senator Rand Paul was on Fox News and he was saying, well, 20% of TikTok is owned by this and 20% of that is not affiliated with the Chinese government.
Yeah, right.
And Brian Kilmeade, he's a nice guy, but he's not conversant in this like our guys, our partners at the Rest is Classified. He should have came back at him and said, hey, my man, that's all BS. That cap table is BS. That thing is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, the People's Liberation Army, and they're shutting that sucker down. Those shareholders are meaningless in this equation. So it's just something to think about, Katty, about where we are in America. We're now in a transactional society. I said on this podcast a few weeks ago, the golden age of corruption is about to begin. I got that wrong. It is the platinum, diamond, golden, gilded age of corruption. That's where we are.
The other thing that I think doesn't work in Donald Trump's favor, and this is something that I think can apply to many of these executive orders, is that he is trying to delay the ban of TikTok, or it's not a ban of TikTok, it's if TikTok doesn't get sold to the Americans, then it can't operate. But he's trying to mess with that, he says, officially on national security grounds. But what does he do? He goes out on Inauguration Day and in the rallies before Inauguration Day and said, I love TikTok because it helped get me elected. I mean, he's undermining his national security case in public. And you can't help but think that when they come to look at this, the Supreme Court, if it gets to the Supreme Court again, would then look at it and say, hold on a second, this isn't about national security. You just want TikTok because you got a whole load of supporters on it that helped you get elected. There are several of these executive orders that are problematic. He's pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement. That is legally problematic because built into that is you're meant to give 1 year's notice under statute in order to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement. But actually, I think the bigger concern with pulling out of these multilateral organizations is that if America is no longer in the WHO, which goes ahead, that's something that he can get through, and it's no longer in the Paris Accord, who do you think is going to jump in? Who do you think it is that's going to think, wow, there's a vacuum here. Let's see if we can operate with these multilateral organizations and bend them to our will. Beijing, wouldn't you? I mean, if you're sitting there in Beijing and you see America retreating, and of course the Americans have problems with the WHO, they have problems with the Paris Climate Accord, but there are things in the world that need multilateral arbiters. And I would think we would agree that, a massive pandemic or climate change are two of those things. And if I was the Chinese, I would look at them and think, I'll just be the one that bends global climate policy and global pandemic policy much more into my purview. Those are things he can do. Paris, there may be a problem on the kind of technicality of it. There are things he can do, but it's not necessarily in America's best interest. But okay, let me put something to you. I spoke to a constitutional lawyer who said the problem with Donald Trump issuing so many executive orders on day one, and so many executive orders that rely on a very robust interpretation of presidential power, there is a greater likelihood that the administration will lose when it comes to the Supreme Court, or when it comes to court challenges, because just the sheer number of them and the way he is speaking of them suggests that what he is interested in is consolidating his own power, not in the merits of each individual case. And so it could be that actually he loses more in the courts because he has put forward more of these executive orders. You're the lawyer on the program. Does that hold up as an argument?
I'm really not a lawyer, Katty. I just play one on television. So let me...
You're a lawyer. I mean, you're more of a lawyer than I am, Anthony. So you're pretty good at talking and sounding like a lawyer. You got a tie on today, for God's sake. That makes you a lawyer.
I did go to law school, which, can I tell you a funny story? It's really off the grid, but my mother was so upset that I went to Goldman Sachs. She was telling people in the local Italian neighborhood that Goldman was a law firm. And so I was in like Rosanna's Deli. I'm like 25 years old. And Mrs. Kazenza's like, how's that law firm Goldman and Sachs? And I'm like, Ma, what the hell are you doing? Well, I'm embarrassed for you. I'm embarrassed for you. She was embarrassed. This is some old school stuff, right?
She wanted her son to be a lawyer. That's an honorable profession.
Yeah, she wanted her son to be a lawyer. There I was as a gangster banker. But what you're saying makes sense. And what you're saying also, Roberts is probably cogitating. Okay, so he's our Chief Justice. He's trying to maintain the integrity and the independence of the court. He gave the president broad powers with the immunity. He wrote that decision himself. I read the entire decision. You've heard me say this to you. Not as bad as the liberals are suggesting, but broad enough that if Richard Nixon was doing his crimes, he would be exonerated. He would be under the protection of the umbrella of that decision. So it is broad, but it's not as broad as the liberals are saying. But I would just say this to you. I think they're going to sting him a few times. I don't think he has the power that he once had because the clock is ticking on him. And when you get to February of 2026, the congressional election season starts. And they've got to have a few wins on the congressional legislation, Democrats and Republicans to run on. And his power is going to start to wane and his influence is going to start to wane. Tom Tillis, publicly, a senator from North Carolina, went after Donald Trump with these executive orders related to these pardons. I guess it's an executive order, but the pardon of the J6 defenders that perpetrated violence.
And by the way, if you want to have a realization about why what he did was so shocking, listen to our special series on January the 6th and the insurrection at the Capitol, and you will be reminded of how aggressively these police officers were attacked by that mob. I'm just putting in a little sales pitch there.
I mean, you're literally the best salesman in Goalhanger's whole community. The brother and sisterhood of Goalhanger, Katty K, ringing the register.
The firm of Goal and Hanger.
Could you please also be a founding member while you're at it, right? Could you please also do that? But Katty, listen to me on this, and I want to get your reaction. So Tillis rails on Trump. They're gouging police officers' eyes out. One guy has a stroke. Another guy dies subsequently. One guy commits suicide. These are violent crimes on police officers, members of law enforcement. Trump is supposedly a pro-law enforcement guy. He sends Vance out to talk about this. The messaging is, we're going to pardon some people. We're not going to pardon anybody that's a violent offender. Now, I know Donald Trump. He heard that on television, and he said in his mind, F J.D. Vance. The evening of the inauguration, they're inside that basketball arena. And he said, this guy and that guy, and oh yeah, Vice President J.D. Vance, wherever the hell he is. Did you catch that? And I believe, after watching J.D. Vance on TV say that he wasn't going to pardon violent offenders, he went ahead and did it. And J.D., just so you know, that it's not just your toenails that went into wood chipper. You're into your ankles right now. Okay, so you're starting to get chipped by the President of the United States, and he will chip at you for the remaining 4 years. What's your reaction to that, Katty? Am I off base?
No, I think that he didn't like JD doing that. The reporting from Axios, our colleagues there, is that they started going through this on a case-by-case basis literally in the last few days, so having said that that's what they were going to do. And Trump just got frustrated with the case-by-case basis. There's 1,500 cases. He doesn't want to look at the details of them. And he says, okay, let's just fucking let them all out. I mean, that's literally what Axios is reporting, that he just got fed up. I want to make this announcement, that his priority was the day one shock and awe announcement on the J6 prisoners, and he didn't have the time or the patience to actually sort out the violent offenders from the non-violent offenders, so he just decided he was going to let them all out. And look, in his mind, I think one of the messages of this week is the number of times that Donald Trump has spoken about 2020 election being stolen from him and the insurrection at the Capitol, January the 6th, and how these people were grossly mistreated. It's still on his mind. He is still super preoccupied with this. And in his mind, those people were his people. They went to the Capitol in his name, and therefore they couldn't have done anything wrong because he hasn't done anything wrong. And if they were acting in his name, that makes them heroes. Whatever they did to police officers, whatever they did to Officer Fanone, as we described in the series, grabbing him outside, beating him with his own taser. He went into cardiac arrest at one point. That's fine because it was all done in Donald Trump's name. So that was one of the more shocking things that happened in Washington this week, and which has left, and what's been interesting, just to talk about the Democrats quickly and how they're responding to this, the kind of crickets from Democrats, I think, has been pretty striking. They are still, and I've spoken to a couple of members of Congress just in the last, Democratic members of Congress, and asked them this question, what's the plan? What's the pushback plan against Donald Trump on immigration? And those roundups are starting to happen, even as we're recording this on Wednesday. On immigration, the feeling is they got it wrong on the border, so they're not really going to push back very hard against the deportations. Potentially, if families start getting separated, you might hear Democrats pushing back. They don't like the idea of the cruelty of that, but they're keeping very quiet about that. And I spoke to the congressman from New York, who you really like, who you singled out to me, Anthony, as somebody who's super impressive, Richie Torres. And I asked him, what are you going to do to push back as Donald Trump announces all of these things? And the first thing he said is, listen, you can't get your hair on fire over everything, but you've got to push back on the stuff your constituents care about. And in his case, he said that's public safety. They care about public safety. So I'm going to push back on public safety. He said he is going to raise his voice about the release of people who killed cops on January the 6th or attacked cops on January the 6th, because his voters care about the safety of police officers. So he sees that as related to what his voters care about. But Democrats are still in a position where they're figuring out how they take on Trump the second time around. I don't know if they have any really good plans. Have you heard anything from Democrats that makes you think they know what to do? If you were their strategist?
I haven't heard anything, but I would love to give the Al Pacino on Any Given Sunday speech as directed by Oliver Stone, where I blast these guys. Hey, guys, what are you doing? You lost the election by 0.5%. You're having this guy manifest that he had a landslide. It's like if Abraham Lincoln had a baby with Ronald Reagan, and the baby's name is Donald John Trump. What are you guys doing? Snap out of it, get your stuff together, create an intergenerational transfer of leadership, get Hakeem Jeffries, Richie Torres, you pick the leaders, and go hard at this guy, okay? Because 50% of the people, 49.5% of the people, they don't like this Katty. And there's another group. Remember one other thing about Donald Trump. With Donald Trump, you get the whole buffet table, Katty. I tell my Wall Street friends, I know you like the low taxes. Oh, I know you like the pro-crypto. And you like this and you like that. But then you get the grift. Then you get the corruption. Then you get the J6 pardons. Did you know that J6 was my birthday, Katty? You probably didn't know that, but just mentioning it to you.
Birthday? Wow,
yes.
You've never mentioned that before. You keep that so quiet and modestly. You keep it very quiet.
Yes, I do. I do, and I want to share it with you. But you know what J6 is going to be called now for the next 4 years? J6 is now going to be called Freedom Day. Okay, so I was born on Trump Insurrection Day, but not now. Yeah. It's now going to be called Freedom Day. So it's changing its name with the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to have the Gulf of America, and J6 is going to be Freedom Day.
And the irony is that the people who were the perpetrators are now the victims.
Exactly. They're the hostages.
And the people who were defending the Capitol are now the aggressors. So Michael Fanone, who was one of the Capitol Hill police, he has now had to take out security to protect him from the people who have been released from prison. But Fanone says, in the public eye in Trump world, he is the bad guy, not the people who attacked him. That is marketing genius. I don't know how they did that jujitsu.
The GOP House members that were protected by those Capitol Police, not a word, supplicants. Okay, so this has been an incredible story. The most formidable political icon of the last 40 years is Donald J. Trump. You can like him or you can dislike him. He hijacked one of the two traditional parties. He lost an election. At the age of 78, he rose back to power. Most of it was due to malfeasance by Democrats not having a proper intergenerational transfer of power. Too much Lady Macbeth going on there with Jill and Joe Biden. And here we are now. He's back in the saddle, wreaking havoc. I know we have to go to a break. Can we talk a little bit about the death penalty, though? The order directs the Secretary General to take all necessary and lawful action to ensure that the states have enough legal injection drugs to carry out executions. You know, this has been something that's happened. People are on death row, but they're saying they don't have the poison. They don't have the poison to kill the people, which is sort of a way of slow rolling the death penalty. And Trump is saying, no, we've got to make sure everybody has enough poison to kill these people. 3 defendants remain on federal death row after Biden converted 37 of these sentences to life imprisonment.
This strikes me as another of those get back at Biden executive orders.
Yeah, exactly. But the reason he's bringing up the death penalty is that I can prove to you, Katty, and I did a lot of research on this when I was in law school, death penalty is racist. Because if I'm a rich guy, I can take a machine gun and kill 20 people, hire an unbelievable lawyer, and I'll never have the death penalty. But if I'm a poor black man in Texas and I do the same thing and I can't get the proper legal representation, I'm going to death row. And you can just look at the empirical data. It's not done judiciously, and it's a reason why we shouldn't have it. But he's letting you know that he wants to bring it back. It's sort of this old-fashionism. We're going back to 1947.
Yeah, it's his way of appealing to the base. And as you say, there's an element of cruelty about that. One thing that a smart political consultant said to me this week was that, remember, day one executive orders are basically a full-time employment chit for lawyers in America. So maybe your mother was right. You should have stayed being a lawyer, because all of this, including that stuff on the death penalty and almost everything else, is going to get litigated. The other thing, Anthony, that you and I have spoken a lot about during the campaign was if Donald Trump would go after his political enemies. I had a text from somebody who is actually out of the country, who is on his enemies list, who chose to be out of the country for Inauguration Day, who said that he has had a massive amount of online attacks just since the president was inaugurated. But more significantly, Donald Trump did sign an executive order asking federal agencies to investigate whether the Biden administration infringed on free speech. And the key bit of that executive order is that he's also then asking those agencies to propose remedial actions if they find evidence. So basically saying to the agencies, go and find out if anyone in the Biden administration behaved in a way that infringed on free speech, could be deemed illegal, and then let's see what we can do to get back at them. And I think that is the clearest sign we've had so far, that all of the talk we heard during the campaign about revenge and vengeance against Democrats or people that have proposed him, that's the one action that we see so far that Donald Trump has taken that suggests to me that this could be a real possibility. And if he does do that, yes, all the stuff about the Gilded Age of America, the booming economy, all of that is interesting and could be beneficial to many sections of this country, and his supporters will love it. But watch whether he goes after his political enemies, because I think for many people watching America from the outside, that would be a sign that this is a very different country from the country that they have known in the past.
I'm upset at the Joe Biden pardons. Can I tell you why? I've moved higher up on the list, Katty K. You're going to have to come and visit me. Okay, and what the hell are they doing? I was like at the bottom of the list. Now I'm floating to the top of the list with all these pardons.
Why have the Joe Biden pardons, which, by the way, every Democrat I have spoken to thinks were a terrible idea, his preemptive pardons of his family, and have opened the door to Donald Trump saying, okay, well, I can pardon whoever I want because Joe Biden did it. The whataboutism that's going on in this town this week is extraordinary. But I don't understand why Joe Biden preemptively pardoning members of his family shoots Anthony Scaramucci further up Donald Trump's enemies list.
No, it's the Mark Millies. It's the Mark Millies and the Liz Cheneys that he pardoned.
Oh, those pardons. Yes, I can see some people have fallen off the enemies list.
It's not the Joe Biden family members.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the enemy list pardons, Katty. Well, it's nice knowing you, though. It's been you've been a very pleasant podcast partner. And it's been very nice knowing you. But I told General Milley, I said, I'm mad at you. He said, why is that? I said, you moved me higher up the list.
Yeah, but poor General Milley, he had his portrait taken down in the Pentagon. It had only been up for a couple of weeks. And within minutes of Donald Trump being inaugurated, they take down Mark Milley's portrait. Maybe they'll be doing that to Anthony Scaramucci, too.
There's no portrait of me anywhere that I'm aware of. But, it's just, to me, it's just astonishing. And that, when we talk about him, the abnormalcy of him, but we have normalized him, Katty, because a lot of the stuff that he's doing is outrageous. If that speech was given 10 years ago that he gave at the inauguration, people would have been outraged. If these executive orders that he's given, many of which we think are suspect and not even constitutional, people would be, what are you talking about? You're outraged. But he's doing something, Katty, that you and I need to tell viewers and listeners. He is hurting the norms in the system. And we'll talk more about that in the break with the cryptocurrency nonsense that he's doing. But we live in a society that relies on people at the top to accept certain norms related to a democracy. And he is subverting all of those.
Yeah, democracy is partly rules and it's partly norms and customs, and he breaks them time and time again. And that speech, by the way, not a single moment of grace towards his predecessor. He could have said, and I thank President Biden for having me for tea. That's all he needed to say. But with Joe Biden sitting feet away from him, he trashed the previous administration. Again, norm busting and a crueler and more harsh American political discourse as a result of it. There has been a lot this week that has made me think about January the 6th. The very fact that the inauguration took place in the same room of the Capitol where those rioters and insurrectionists were storming into, having broken the windows, having beaten the police officers, it's just staggering. If you want a reminder, and I think it is worth everybody this week as we start the second Trump administration reminding themselves of what happened on that day. This week on our special series on January the 6th, we are talking about the TikTok of that day, from Donald Trump's speech in the morning to the rioters pushing against the windows, attacking the police officers, using batons, using all the weapons they had on hand, invading the inner sanctum of American democracy. It's really worth a listen. It will put this new administration back in context for you. You can get all the previous episodes as well, of course, on the restispoliticsus.com or wherever you find your podcasts. But do take a listen to it. It's particularly relevant this week. And if you want to listen to episode 4 straight away without the ads, you can do so by becoming a founding member of the Rest is Politics US at restispoliticsus.com. We'd love to have you there. You'll also get extra episodes every week of questions and answers if you become a founding member. And we are already planning lots of fun new series for this year. So you can get those too if you're a founding member. That is the plug over officially. You and I were texting before Inauguration Day about the meme currency that Donald Trump announced just before days before he was going to be inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States. What's happened with that, and why were you so upset about it?
Okay, so it's complicated, and so the brilliance behind this grift is that the American people in general, really don't understand it. You'd have to be a cryptocurrency enthusiast to really understand it. So I'll do my best to try to explain it here to our listeners. But Katty, in the world of cryptocurrency, there are actual tokens that have some level of utility. Bitcoin would be one of those in my mind. Bitcoin is a fully transparent ledger. It started in 2009. It's now worth $105,000 per token. And basically what it is, it's an operating system to transfer money. We began the process of messaging to each other by the speed of light in 1840. That was the introduction of telegraph and the Morse code. But our money at that time was moving by stagecoach and horseback, right? Silver or gold bullion moving across a country like ours in a stagecoach. The internet allows the money to be transferred instantaneously to move at the speed of light of our communications. And so Bitcoin represents property on the internet that has this capability. And if you read, and I was with Neil Ferguson this week here in Davos, I'm a big fan of his. If you read The Ascent of Money, which is the history of money, how we got money and why money is a technology that we use to transfer a payment, a token, if you will, between us. It's a technology so that we don't have to barter with each other. We have this technology. It's sort of a ledger. It's a spreadsheet. I have assets in my bank account. I don't have gold bullion. I mean, let's say I have a dollar in my bank account and I want to buy something from you. The dollar comes out of my bank account. It goes into your bank account and $1 goes up in your bank account. So Bitcoin is really that. It's a distributed ledger, fully transparent on the internet. And the reason it has value, it has all this immutability, all this scarcity related to money.
Can I just jump in with a question? I read your book on Bitcoin, which was great and very helpful. And one of the things that you talk about there is how money is based on trust. Any kind of money is based on trust. And one of the things that people who are skeptics of cryptocurrency is, how do we trust it? And you make the point in your book that actually every fiat currency, the dollar, the Swiss franc, the euro, is also all built on trust. But what does what Donald Trump has done do to our trust in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin?
Yeah. Okay, so now this is the problem. So what's happened a few years back, and this is a little bit of a regulatory thing, and so the government in the United States is very anti-crypto, at least it was, and it was preventing certain cryptocurrencies from taking hold, and they wanted to push these cryptocurrencies through the security exchange. And the cryptocurrency community said, well, no, they're commodities. They should be regulated by the CFTC, the Commodities Futures Commission. And so what ended up happening is they started making these meme coins. Doge, D-O-G-E, is actually a meme coin. It's got a huge market capitalization in the cryptocurrency space. And it's just a replicative blockchain. Doesn't have any meaningful value, but people trade it like it's a token. It's almost like a gambling token. And we're sitting here with Doge at $54 billion in market capitalization. And so the Trumps put out a coin before his electoral victory called World Liberty. And the coin failed. No, it didn't take hold. But 2 days before he's about to ascend to the American presidency, they launched another meme coin that they called Trump. And so the symbol, if you went on CoinGecko or any of these databases where you can get cryptocurrency prices, the symbol is TRUP. The Trump coin is trading at $7.7 billion as you and I are speaking, but the fully diluted valuation of that coin is $38.7 billion. And Trump himself owns 80% of that coin. Said differently, he's created $25 to $30 billion worth of value in that coin. Now, why is that important for people to understand? You could create an anonymous ledger. You could fund it with billions of dollars, and you could go to Trump's coin and buy coins out of his treasury. That could be a potential clearing station for corruption. And it's a complicated thing to understand, but I need to shed light on it because this is some high-level, crazy breaking of norms. And so this is a profiteering exercise by Trump and his family. They launched a Melania coin. Doesn't have as large of a market capitalization as the Trump coin, but that's still several $100 million in capitalization. These coins are basically worthless, but to trade them in the marketplace. And so the idea is, well, it's going to go up, so let me buy it here. Other people will buy it in the expectation that it's going to go up. I'll sell it. And if you look at the chart since they launched this a few days ago, it looks like a very bad EKG. It's going up and down, but you can have players stepping into the market to buy that coin to unduly influence Donald Trump and his family.
So if I wanted something from Donald Trump, say I'm the dictator of X country, and I want some favorable deal from Donald Trump's presidency, this would be a way for me to get that deal.
It would be. You know, there have been people that have gone to him and said, I bought shares in Troop Social. The symbol is DJT.
Same kind of thing.
I've done this, right? I've done that. And remember there was an uproar in the United Kingdom about Keir Starmer, I guess, getting gifted a few Taylor Swift tickets or something like that. I don't know what it was, but there's a big uproar. And so Trump has busted the norms and he's conditioned people to accept his grift. And then you have the Trump apologists where they'll say to you, well, that doesn't matter. He's pro-crypto.
Hold on one second, because if he's pro-crypto, why would he do something, Anthony, that makes the reputation of crypto, which is already a little fragile for some people, but makes the reputation look more like it's a sketchy currency?
Because that's him. Because he's grifting. He's going to grift likely several $1 billion off of this token. They've already printed for themselves $500 million they've taken in fees and token sales. So they've already made $500 million in the last week off the token. And he's grifting. And so it's hurting. So I said it publicly. It's on the record. I was at in the Congress Center here in Davos. I was sitting alongside of Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase. Brilliant guy, soft-spoken guy. He's done great work at Coinbase, making it one of the leading cryptocurrency exchanges in the world. He's very aggressively regulated, and he is tight as a drum in terms of handling the appropriate way to do this stuff in the industry. He's best of class. And, he doesn't want to comment on it. He's obviously at a public company, but I'm at a private company. And so what I said to the audience here in Davos, the delegates here, I said, this really hurts the industry, because if you're a 60-plus-year-old fuddy-duddy, which I happen to be, but I happen to like crypto, but if you're a 60-plus-year-old fuddy-duddy that doesn't understand cryptocurrency or is new to the market, and you hear about this Trump coin, it's going to color you negatively towards crypto, and it's going to slow down the regulatory process, and there's going to be flack now for Trump's people. The rumor has it that guys like David Sachs, who's his crypto advisor, didn't even know this was being launched. If you go on Crypto X and you read the commentary, even some of Trump's most ardent supporters, a gentleman by the name of Nick Carter, wouldn't mean much to you, Katty, because you're not in that industry, but Nick Carter is a big, influential, straight shooting sort of a guy. I really like Nick. He's pro-Trump because of the anti-crypto stance that Gensler took during the Biden administration. But he basically said that this Trump coin is a disgrace. I called it Idi Amin style corruption. I mean, it's really wild stuff that he's doing. And I think it was important for us to bring it up on this podcast. And I may have confused some people, or maybe they don't fully understand it, but I'm telling you that he set up a clearing station where you could anonymously send money to him and his family through these wallets.
If you're sending it anonymously, how does that help? Because in a way, you want to send it not anonymously. You want to be public about it. You want him to know.
Okay, so let's role play Katty K. Let's role play. Hello, President Katty K. I created this anonymous wallet. I transferred it through a bank in Cyprus. The wallet number is 72654. Okay, Katty, I'm going to step into the marketplace with this money. I'm going to buy Trump coin out of the Treasury, which you, President Katty K, can pocket. And I need you to do something for me. I need to shift policy in the Middle East. I need to shift policy in South America.
It might be an anonymous purchase, but you make sure he knows.
Yeah. Look, I gotta come meet with you. We're not going to do it over the phone. But here's the wallet number. I created it. No one can really trace it back to me. Here's the money. Could we reinstate TikTok? Because you said that you didn't want TikTok. You got 80 of your fellow Republicans in the House to vote alongside of your opinion there. But I'd like you to change your opinion. Here's the money. Okay, and it's terrible. I mean, look. I mean, you know what? It's terrible. And by the way, he'll claim that he's not doing that, of course. And he was laughing with the press yesterday. He said, "Oh, you're saying I made $1 billion or a few billion? Well, that's just peanuts to these guys. Peanuts." He was trying to dismiss it. You're taking the platform of power and you are using it for aggressive personal gain, which is something that no other president did. Right? There's 47 presidents, but there's really not, right? There's 45 presidents because Cleveland and Donald Trump were president twice. So you've got 45 presidents. Nobody did this. Nobody does. Even during the Teapot Dome scandal, the money didn't go to the president. It went to his lackeys. And so this is absolutely reprehensible, but we have silence. Because let me tell you something, I'm going to bully you into submission. You're going to sit behind my family. You're going to give me hundreds of millions of dollars of donations, and you're going to sit behind my family. You're going to sit ahead of my cabinet members. Okay. And so this way I can show everybody your supplicancy to me. And oh, by the way, if you're an elected official and you're a Republican, you're going to stay silent while I'm grifting for my family. Otherwise, I'm going to hit you with a ray gun and knock you out of office like I did to Liz Cheney and Adam Kissinger.
What this reminds me of is something that Bob Rubin, who was Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary, and Larry Summers, who also worked for Bill Clinton back in the 90s, said to me last June, which is that everybody is focused on fascism and autocracy in America. If Donald Trump wins the election, what they should really be focused on is the Latin Americanization of the United States, that this becomes a corrupt oligarchical system where you pay to play. And the Oval Office becomes a place where the highest bidder gets what they want, but you just have to pay up. You pay up and the money directly will benefit Donald Trump and those close to him. Just before we leave, there's one thing that's been pretty interesting. We've spoken a lot about Elon Musk. And earlier this week, Donald Trump announced Stargate, this $500 billion investment in artificial intelligence in order to get America ahead in the AI battle with China. And he had with him the titans of artificial intelligence, including your friend Sam Altman, standing there in the office with him in the White House as he announced this before the cameras. And within hours, Elon Musk, who is no fan of Sam Altman's, trashed Sam Altman publicly on X, saying he knows for a fact that Sam Altman does not have the kind of money to invest in Stargate that Donald Trump had just announced. And I spoke to somebody here in DC who said, listen, this is the kind of thing even Elon Musk cannot afford to do. You've just had the president of the United States standing there with Sam Altman announcing an endeavor, and Elon Musk throws cold water on it on X. I don't know what Elon Musk is thinking, whether he thinks he's the most powerful person in Washington, D.C. Maybe he's buying all of those jokes that are going around that it's President Musk and Vice President Trump. But I think this is the kind of thing that could get him into trouble. And it shows that for all of the harmony, we're coming in tough. This is an administration that owns a lot of problems now around the world and has significant dissent and conflicts within itself.
So, Katty, it's probably not well known by many, but Elon and Sam started ChatGPT. Elon put $50 million into the enterprise, and the enterprise was supposed to be non-for-profit. Sam decided to switch the enterprise to a for-profit company, and it caught Elon off guard. He's a very competitive guy. He didn't like it, didn't own enough of it. And of course, he's now created his own XAI, which has raised billions of dollars and is now a competitor to ChatGPT. And that's where the fight really is. And so, it's interesting that Elon is hitting him with both barrels. It was more of a ego thing than anything else, but he claims that Sam lied to him. So let me ask you something. I know we have to leave, but I'll be brief. When I got my badge for the White House, it was a blue badge. And Trump didn't like the color. They now changed it to platinum. So what does the badge give you? It gives you access to the White House grounds. If you have a blue badge, your White House grounds, the West Wing, the residency, the first floor, and then you get access to the old executive office building. If there was a orange strip on the top of the badge, you had access to the president's residence, his personal home upstairs. And Elon Musk got a platinum badge, which basically gives him access to those things. And the rumor is that he's going to have an office in the old executive building. And Trump just signed, as you and I are speaking, an executive order to create this temporary organization known as Doge. But Elon Musk will be the CEO of X, Tesla. There's other companies like Neuralink and these other companies that he's the CEO of. And I guess the question I have for you, because you're a Washingtonian, this is a violation of many different ethical rules and many different self-interested things. And just by the way he's tweeting about Sam Altman, you know he's going to use the sword of policy decision-making against his adversaries. And so the question is, will anybody say anything? Or will this now be the norm that CEOs of large companies, trillion-dollar companies, can get badged by the president, hang out, create a department to affect governmental policy while they have economic interests scaled in size like this? What do you think happens? Any uproar, or this is going to be okay?
I think the problems come from among themselves. These are very powerful, very wealthy people who have very much their own agendas. They're not there to serve Donald Trump. They're there to serve their own interests, potentially their shareholder interests, but mostly their own interests. And if they start fighting amongst each other, then that becomes a problem for the administration. And I don't think Donald Trump is going to like it necessarily if Elon Musk is trashing on something that Donald Trump himself has just promoted. I mean, that's just like saying, Donald Trump, you're an idiot. You've just announced this thing that is not viable. I mean, Elon Musk could have put it in that language. He didn't use that language, but it wasn't far off actually saying that. And he did it within seconds. I think he's getting a little ahead of himself. Let's see. Elon Musk, carry on behaving like this, and your days with that platinum badge may be numbered. Okay, we are going to leave it there. Thank you very much for listening. Good place to leave it on the prediction that Elon Musk is getting ahead of himself. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. We will be back, of course, next week. We'll be back on Sunday as well for our founding members with our exclusive question and answer for them. We've got some great questions coming up this week. So do tune in for that if you're a founding member. But thank you from me, Katty, Kay, and we will see you next week.